Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihare Jaya Radha Madhava. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parajik Charish Totar Shatri Shriman Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Ki Gaur Premanandi. I'm not going to go through that. Naram Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashta Prayasta Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. And by regular attendance on classes of the Bhagavatam, one can get nice sleep. Is that right? No. By regular attendance in the classes of Bhagavatam, and by rendering a service to the pure devotee, Nitya Bhagavata Sevaya, daily, all that is troublesome is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Swayam Rupakada Mahayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagarna Lalitam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dinabandhu, Jagatpate, Gopisha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namostute, Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Vrishabhanu Sute Devi, Pranamami Hari Priye, Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Bevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Vidigadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Gayate Gurum Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hari Om Tat Sat. Oh my God. Brahmadayo Yat Kritasetu Pala Yat Karanam Vishvamidam Chamaya Agnakariyasya Pishachacharya Aho Vibhum Nashcharitam Virdambanam Brahmadayo Yat Kritasetu Pala Yat Karanam Vishvamidam Chamaya Agnakariyasya Pishachacharya Aho Vibhum Nashcharitam Vidambanam Brahmadayo Yat Kritasetu Pala Yat Karanam Vishvamidam Chamaya Agnakariyasya Pishachacharya Aho Vibhum Nashcharitam Vidambanam. Please chant. Brahma Adayaha. Demigods like Brahma. Yat. Whose? Krita. Activities. Setu. Religious rites. Pala. Observers. Yat. One who is. Karanam. The origin of. Vishvam. The universe. Idam. This. Cha. Also. Maya. Material energy. Agnya Kari. Order carrier. Yasya. Whose? Pishacha. Devilish. Charya. Activity. Aho. O my Lord. Vibhumna. Charitam. Of the great. Charitam. Character. Vidambanam. Simply imitation. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Demigods like Brahma also follow the religious rites observed by him. He is the controller of material energy, which causes the creation of the material world. He is great, and therefore his devilish characteristics are simply imitation. Purport. Lord Shiva is the husband of Durga, the controller of the material energy. Durga is personified material energy, and Lord Shiva, being her husband, is the controller of the material energy. He is also the incarnation of the mode of ignorance, and one of the three deities representing the Supreme Lord. As his representative, Lord Shiva is identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is very great, and his renunciation of all material enjoyment is an ideal example of how one should be materially unattached. One should therefore follow in his footsteps and be unattached to matter, not imitate his uncommon acts like drinking poison. So I already said Om Jnana Timirasya, but I guess Mukham Kroti Vachalam Phungum Gayate Girum Yat Kripatamaham Vineshi Gurum Dedatarinam Shri Chaitanya Paramanandamavam Shri Chaitanya Ishram Hari Om Tat Sat. So we're in chapter 14 of Canto 3, where Diti is going to be impregnated in the evening and give birth to the terrible Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Does that mean they're twin brothers? I think one is older, because they say Hiranyaksha is like the older brother, and so Hiranyakashipu like got upset that his older brother got killed, and so he after he gets killed, we'll hear a little bit later that he goes to perform the penances, and that's the famous one where he's like standing on one leg for 10,000 years of the demigods or something like that, and bugs eat his whole body, and then he becomes the Hiranyakashipu that we all know and love. We've heard so many times about. So there's a few things that are going on here. Kasyapa, he was just trying to finish up a yajna, doing his daily Brahminical activities. Brahmins have 6, they have like 3 activities, but they're like, internal and external versions of those. So maybe let's go through those. What are the 3 or 6-fold activities that a Brahmana performs? Jimmy, give me one. And give me what's the internal and external pair? Yeah. Okay, your turn, Aiden. Can we get the microphone, please? Yeah, learning and teaching, yeah, specifically. Okay, the Vedas. And then what's the last one? Does anyone know the last one? Jimmy, don't say it. Yeah, what about yajna? The 2. What do they do?
There's the external yajna, like doing the havan, and then
They perform yajna and they teach yajna as well. So they show other kids how to do it and teach other people, but they also perform it. Like here, our great Brahmana Pujari couple, Mataji and her husband, she does so much Pujari, she also teaches the Pujaris how to do it. He does so many havans and yajnas and things like that, And maybe sometimes if someone would ask him, he would teach them how to do it. So he's doing his yajna, and Diti gets into this fit where she becomes jealous, and so she's also sexually agitated. So she's just bothering her husband right in the middle. It says it earlier in this that it was right at the sunset. So this is during the sandhya, and he's trying to do he has to chant his Gayatri. He's got to finish his havan, his yajna. He's got to do his brahminical things. Like even for us, we've been prescribed so many things during every sandhya. Do we know what the word sandhya means? The sandhya means joining of two things. So sandhya is, and specifically when we say sandhya, most of the time it's talking about the joining of the time of day. From the night to the day, when the sun is rising, that's one sandhya. When the sun is going from going up to going down, that's in the noon. That's another sandhya. And when the sun is going from day till night, that's another sandhya. So these are joinings. And then also in other measures of time, like when you go from Satya Yuga to Kali Yuga, there's a sandhya. And we're actually in that sandhya right now. It's a period of a few thousand years that it's like shifting from one to the other, It's not like the day of Satya Yuga comes and it's Kali Yuga the next day and everyone just immediately has lifespans of 100 or less. Like if we hear in the 12th canto how in Kali Yuga people live really short. It's not like it just immediately happens. There's a time period of slow gradual adjustment. Big garland. So that's what the sandhya is. And so during the sandhya, like we have a song, Yasa prasadam bhagavat prasadam yasa prasadam nagati bhagoti. Say it loud. Dhyan. Who knows what dhyan means? Dhyan yoga, it's the chapter 6 title, right? It's meditation. Dhyan means focusing your mind on something. Dhyan stuvams tasya yasash tri sandhyam. During the 3 sandhyams, which I described, those the middle of the day, the morning, and the evening, that you should remember the Lord. Dhyan stuvam, remember him, remember the Guru. Vande Guru Shri Chaitanya. So that's one thing. Also, we think about our schedule. Okay, in the first sandhya, what's scheduled? No, in the first sandhya. When is the first sandhya? No, specifically, I told you. No, I mean, when is the first sandhya, in time-wise? Like what's happening? When the sun is rising. So what about time is that? It's normally like 7 o'clock, maybe 6:30. It depends on what time of the year, but in general, what do we have prescribed for that? Yeah, like you said, we have Guru Puja and the Darshan Arti, things like you come to see the Lord. It's like auspicious. And even before that, we were doing things like we have Mangal Arti and things like that, Japa. Then the noon time, what's going on? The arti, they have another arti. I mean, technically we're living in the temple. We're actually pretty below the standard. We should realize that. We can get more benefit by when people live in the temple. You normally, if you go to every single arti, you get more benefit, because you can always be remembering the Lord. However, we do the best we can. At least if we come to Mangal Arti, that's the most important. But usually back in the day, Prabhupada had all these artis. Everyone in the temple would go to all of them, unless they were performing tons of other service. Like the book distributors would go out right after Mangal Arti, and they would distribute books until the wee hours of the morning, the next morning, something like that. If someone's doing some intense Sankirtan or other service like that, sometimes they won't do that. But then they're already doing spiritual activity where they're remembering the Lord the whole time. So they're getting the benefit of attending these things that anyone else that would not have the opportunity to do such intense service, they can have the opportunity to remember the Lord by coming to see Him. So that's in the noontime, and then in the evening, when the sun's setting, then we have, and they call it Sandhya Arti, because that's during the Sandhya. I mean, it's supposed to be. Generally, we have fixed times scheduled because, at least, it's in the West, it's very difficult if you don't have things on a fixed schedule. But if a temple was able to be like supremely managed, like when those things can actually be during the specific prescribed time based on the cycle. But if you're having like a temple in Sweden or something like that, where sometimes it's daytime for 3 days straight and there's no like evening sandhya or something like that, or the sandhya lasts for 3 days straight, then sometimes it doesn't make sense. So the acharyas have prescribed these different things just to make it easy for us to be able to follow. So it's saying Brahma Adya, the demigods and others, Adya, like when it's saying like Adi, it just means every other thing and the thing. Like there's different verses. Tan Namarupa Charitadi Sukirtanado. So his name, his form, Adi, which means then his pastimes and all his other qualities and different things about the Lord. So when the word Adi is used, it means like other things. So all these high up personalities, even Lord Brahma, follow Krita Setu Pala. They're Palas, they observe the Setu, the religious rites, that we're talking about, and specifically during the Sandhya. So it's the Sandhya. And so what are the religious rites during the Sandhya? Going to the Arti, going to do Gayatri. That's the time when you get second initiation, you chant Gayatri 3 times per day. And it's like you have to chant extra mantras. You have extra sadhana. We don't just have our rounds, we have our Gayatri mantras then too, which is like basically a chanting. It ends up being an extra 210. So it's like 2 rounds extra worth of mantras. They're different. They're not the Maha Mantra. It's different mantras you chant. But you're supposed to only chant them during these specific times. Like the Maha Mantra has no specific time, but the Gayatri Mantra has these specific times. So this is a special time that it's actually said during these sandhyas, it's extremely inauspicious to perform materialistic activities such as eating, sleeping, passing, or what to speak of having intercourse, which is about to happen here. So I can, from my own experience, every time that I've slept during these times, it's never been good and it's always been worse than it could be. Like one time I was sleeping and somehow Krishna, by his merciful nature, woke me up right before the Sandhya. Like I woke up, right? And then I was having a really wonderful dream. I was dreaming of, I was on some like island and everyone was worshiping Lord Nrsingadev. Like Radhanath Maharaj was there and he hugged me. And it was like a really ecstatic dream. And then like I woke up and I was like, wow, that's such an ecstatic dream. I'm still feeling like a little tired. Like, let me just sleep a little more. Sometimes when you're like in the mode of ignorance, like it just gets you, Yeah, and you're like, yeah. And I mean, sometimes people say that, yeah. But so I should have just gotten up then because I knew it was going to be the Sandhya and I knew that I was sleeping during Sandhya was bad. And then I slept during the Sandhya. And what happened, I had this weird dream. And then one of my friends was like, we were like sleeping on the same couch right next to each other. And I had a dream with him in it. And we were like driving a car. And when you're in dreams, things would never work out how like normally, especially with the bad dreams. So I was driving and then like suddenly there's just a huge bend in the road and just big body of water. And like I try to turn, the car is just going faster. It doesn't slow down. It doesn't turn. And we just like crash into the water. And I wake up and it was kind of like a nightmare. And I feel all like fried out and like, what the hell is that? And so that was because I was sleeping during the Sandhya. And we hear now in the previous verses here how during the Sandhya, the Lord Shiva and all his different ghosts and goblins and all these negative energies, they're all traveling during this time. So when you open yourself up on anything, like when you're eating, you're opening yourself up. When you're sleeping, you're opening yourself up in certain ways. These energies are going to affect you. So that's one practical reason that if we're doing something spiritual during the Sandhya, then automatically they won't be able to affect us. So now, Diti, she's asking, and she's like a prostitute pulling on his dhoti, which I don't exactly know what that means, but anyways, it's not good news for either of them. They're about to do something inauspicious, and so if we just follow the prescription of acharyas, then we can automatically avoid these. And there's another point that there's this book that I couldn't find for a long time, and I recently found a digital version of it called Nimitta Jnana. It was written by this one devotee he wants to write a book about as many of the arts. There's 64 traditional arts that Krishna mentions in the 10th canto, and he wants to write a book about all this. He wrote a book on Garbhadam Samskar, which also Garbhadam Samskar says you should, like this is also one funny point. The DT is like begging him to like have a child, but she literally just has to wait a second. Like he's saying wait 1 second, and he's not joking. Like it's literally you just have to wait. Like Sandhya at most will last 48 minutes, and they've already gone through some of it, and they're going through some of it talking about it. So they could have just waited another 30 minutes or 15 minutes at most. Like how difficult is it really to wait that long? It's you really want something really badly, and they're both very like agitated. Is it that hard to wait that long? But no, they couldn't do it somehow. He says he just offers his obeisances to fate, and then went to some hidden place. But actually, for these subtle energies, these subtle devatas and Lord Shiva and all his ghost friends and everything, they're subtle energy. They know what we're even thinking. They can get into our minds. They can get into our dreams. They can affect us subtly. So you're not hiding from them wherever you go. There's no hiding from them. There's just protecting yourself by doing spiritual activities. That's what you do. And so in this book, there's a very interesting point about our 3 energy channels. Now, if we're like yoga nerds, then we know about the Ida, the Pingala, and the Shushumna. These are 3 energy channels that are flowing in the body. And you could it's simple to understand them. One is going up at the center, that's the Shushumna, and then one is going on the left and the right. The one on the right is called the solar. The one going on the left is called the lunar. And so if we understand the difference between solar and lunar energies, like, do you understand the difference between those? If I just say something's like a solar energy, solar means more masculine, more like if you're about to fight with someone, that's solar energy, or if you're arguing with them, or if you're like doing heavy lifting or like something with your body, that's solar energy. Now if you're like making a contract for like a lease agreement, or you're like have to like settle a long-term dispute, and you're like arguing in the court or something like that, and it's very detailed, very like more details, that's more Chandra energy, more lunar energy. Even scientists have associated these things. One is the parasympathetic nervous system, one is the sympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic, fight or flight, you're just ready to act. That's the solar energy. And then the lunar, the parasympathetic, that's like when your fight or flight is off, then you're in the resting, and your whole nervous system can regenerate. So these 2 are always going, and depending on what they are going, we don't really control exactly how these are going, especially when the Shushumna is going. We don't control that at all. That's controlled by the Lord. So it's known as one of the only nimittas directly given to us by the Lord. And if we can properly track these, you can know the exact time when you're going to die. That's a whole nother class, but that's one like a good thing for a devotee. Like Parikshit Maharaj knew when he was going to die, so therefore he could do the proper thing. Like we know when these sandhyas are, we can do the proper thing during them. So the interesting thing to note. So therefore, if we know, like right now, let's just do a thing. Everyone's breathing right now, right? Okay. Do you know which energy channel is activated? Do you want to know the secret of how to understand that? Okay, so everyone close their left nostril and breathe in. And just experience the quality. Is it blocked or is it not? Just remember that. And now compare it. Close your right nostril and breathe in. Now, which nostril was easier, Jimmy? Which nostril is easier? Your which? You're right? Okay, so whoever's left nostril is more prominent, their more feminine Chandra lunar energy is there. That means they shouldn't be getting into a fight or doing heavy things right now. It's good more time to planning. It's good to listen to a Bhagavatam class. It's good to be doing stuff like that. So that's how I know the Chandra energy is going. Now if their right side was going, like your left side was going, right? But your right side was going. So if your right side is going, that means then your solar energy is more active. It's more auspicious, more easy for you. You could say that your whole psychophysiology is supporting you in doing those more heavy activities, maybe it's going to be more difficult to listen to the Bhagavatam class. I don't know. So then therefore we can kind of base that. But then there's times, specific times, and yes, it happens to be during the Sandhya. That's one time when both nostrils are activated. And what that tells you is that the middle channel is activated. And they're saying that when the middle channel is activated, it's not good for either of any of the activities that are meant normally for the other two. So the only thing that's supported by our psychophysiology during the Sandhya is actually spiritual activities, such as japa, mantra japa if you're brahmanas, and things like that. That's why it's, that in yoga it's said that you do all this stretching and then you sit there and you're doing your breathing activities and you're just meditating on something like these during the Sandhya. And so what's also interesting is that they're also during Ekadasi, the Shushumna is much more active. So it like even on Lord Krishna's special day, there is actually psychophysical support for doing more spiritual activities. And guess what? Your Shushumna flow is increased when you fast as well. So all these things will help you to perform, if we want to chant a lot of japa on Ekadasi, then fasting is really good for that. And our Shushumna is flowing, it makes our japa that much easier. So these are the things that are happening during the Sandhya. But unfortunately, even though demigods like Lord Brahma, what to speak of people like us, try to follow these rites, Diti and Kasyapa were unfortunately about to miss out on the benefits that they could if they just waited a little bit. They just waited a little bit. Imagine the children they would have. But we can also understand that Kasyapa and Diti, he was paying his obeisances to fate, which fate is another form of Krishna. Krishna is the controller of time. He's the controller of everything changing. He's the ultimate controller. Not even a blade of grass moves without his will. At least in this version of the Bhagavatam, these two souls born in Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, who, by the way, are born every kalpa, but in this specific kalpa, not every kalpa, they're just some demons, but in this specific kalpa, they're also devotees, paradoxically. Because they were pure devotees, they heard about the Lord fighting demons, and they said, okay, I really want to experience that. I want to see the Lord fighting demons. So then the Lord made an arrangement that he could fight them, and so they're having a pastime. So this is kind of a pastime that, how at least this time when, sometimes actually it said, I think I read in the Spiritual Warrior book, sometimes when specific souls, they want a specific mother and their father, there'll be Daiva Netrena, arrangement by the higher demigods and things to make the specific, husband and wife meet each other and become very attracted, where they unnaturally, they wouldn't become that attracted, but they're so drawn because a specific person wants to take birth from them. So it's actually, whatever their natural thing would happen, it's reinforced by the higher forces. And so something similarly, maybe, I would like to think that Kasyapa, I think he's an Amsa of Nanda Maharaj. Him and Aditi have Upendra as their son, isn't it? So he's like an exalted soul. So for exalted soul to get bewildered by lust, it's not very good. So there must be some sort of thing going on. Krishna can bewilder anyone. He can even, we're talking about Lord Shiva getting upset by them breaking this rule, but even Lord Shiva can get bewildered by Lord Vishnu, Krishna, such as Krishna's potency, and that's we see that later in the 8th canto, Mohini Murti. So it says, he is the controller of the material energy which causes the creation of the material world. So Lord Shiva is the Shaktiman of the material energy, Durga. Prabhupada says in the purport, Durga is personified material energy. And in the Brahma Samhita, we have a nice verse, Shrishti Stiti Pralaya Sarana Shakti Reka Chaye Vyasya Bhuvanani Bibarti Durga Ichanurupam Apiyasha Chachesta Tesa Govindam Adi Purusham Tamam Vajami Shristi Sthiti Pralaya. So pralaya means total absorption, like total destruction of everything. It's not just necessarily destruction, but it's everything merging back into its original elements. But they call it the destruction of the universe. Shrishti Sthiti. Shrishti is creation, Sthiti is maintenance. So Durga, Shrishti Sthiti Pralaya Sadhanir Shakti Ekta. So Durga is the Shakti, that her activity, her sadhana, is to perform all these. Shrishti Sthiti Shakti Ekta. Chayava Yasha Bhuvanani Bibarti Durga. She's known as Durga. Durga means difficult, or like prison house. Like a prison house is difficult to escape from. So this material world is actually like a prison house. It's difficult to escape from. Our prison suits are made of 5 elements, and they go through heaven and hell, material misery and distress. Chapala Sukha, right? Jimmy, you remember that word from our studying of the Nectar of Devotion? Flickering happiness. Bhoga Tyaga, we get sad because we didn't get our happiness, and then so we perform renunciation so we can get more power, and then we use that power to get happiness, and then we become happy, but then ultimately it gets taken away again, and we get sad, then we go this cycle, Bhoga Tyaga, where we want to like enjoy and then renounce and then enjoy and renounce. And then when the body's all used up, we have our subtle body, which causes us to leave our material body and accept another one. And we can't get rid of our subtle body unless we get fully liberated. And so this is a very difficult place to get out. And so Durga is maintaining all of this. She's worshipped a lot. Like if you go to Bengal, especially if you go and like where was that there was some terrible thing that happened where devotees in Bangladesh got killed because people thought that they were, sometimes the Muslims will, like, not necessarily the Muslims, but the rascals in the guise of Muslims will make some activity look like the devotees or the Hindus are like blaspheming the Muslims, but really it was just like planted there, and then it like ends up stirring up a whole big riot. And causing a lot of destruction and travesty for the devotees. And so something happened like that. But it was during the time when they all worship Durga. There's like a time of the year when they all worship Durga. And everyone, and a lot of people in Bengal worship Durga. We hear in the Chaitanya Bhagavat and Chaitanya Charitamrita. Like in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, there's the Kolovich or Sridhar, who is always chanting, and he's a banana leaf salesman. He's always chanting, and his next door neighbors like start giving a hard time. Like, why are you chanting? Like, are you just chanting because you're just hungry at night and you don't have nothing else to do and your stomach's paining you, so you start like crying out, but you're disturbing all our sleep. Like, why are you worshiping Krishna? If you worship Krishna, he's not giving you any material opulence. Look at all, like, there's holes in your roof, there's holes in your clothes, there's holes in your drinking pot. Like, everything's messed up. Like, what's going on? Why don't you just worship Durga? See, we're worshiping Durga. We're getting such nice opulence. We're getting all this stuff. It's like very good. Even Maharaj Yudhisthira was asking, like, what the heck? Why do people that worship Krishna get shafted and get like nothing, and like they get messed up? And people that worship Shiva and worship Durga, like they get hooked up. They get all the nice stuff. And so there was a whole conversation in the end of the 10th canto about that, and how actually when Durga gives these material things, she's just further trapping you in the prison. It's like you think you're doing good, but the warden actually put you in solitary confinement. And that's what it was like, You think you're doing good when they give you, okay, here's some mystic powers, here's a bunch of riches, here's some beautiful like wealth in women and all these things. No, but it's just further trapping you. Like in the movie The Matrix, it's a prison without any bars, a prison for your mind. I mean, that's actually what this is. It's the matrix, and even matrix comes from the word mother, like mater, mother, matrix. They're all related linguistically, and it's like Mother Durga is I think, if you look in the translation, the regulator tricks, something that's like the feminine version of regulator, and she's the complete ruler over all of this, And so if we actually satisfy her, if we satisfy the warden of the prison, like Prabhupada was talking about in one class, someone satisfied the warden. He was a spy and he got caught and sentenced to 10 years in prison. But he was like very intelligent and he satisfied the warden and he ended up getting a very nice office. He didn't have to stay behind bars. He could just do desk work and like get everything he needs, and probably got a lighter sentence and got let out early. And all these things can happen if you satisfy the warden. So similarly, if we, by instead of directly worshiping Durga herself, Durga doesn't want us to just directly worship her to get some sort of opulence. If we worship Krishna and through that respect her in her position as a servant of Krishna, then she can become the means of our deliverance, and she helps make all kinds of arrangements for us to actually get delivered. One good example is in Jagannath Puri, where, do we know the original name of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada? 108, a stotra shot. Bimala Prasad, Bimala Devi. That is one of the Shakti Peets Devis. There's 108 Shakti Peet Devis, which are different, or maybe there's 8 prominent ones. I can't remember. But there's many different prominent Shakti Peets, or places where Shakti is like there in India. And one of them is in Jagannath Puri, and that is Bimala Devi, one of the like primary deities of Mother Durga, of the goddess. And what happens with her? She gets Jagannath Prasad all day. All the prasad that's offered is then offered to the Lord, then offered to her in the demigods. Then we get it. That's why it's called Mahaprasad, not just prasad. If you offer something to the Lord, then it's called the Lord's mercy, his prasad. When you offer that to a superior, then it's called Mahaprasad. Then when another superior takes it and offers it to you, that's called Mahaprasad. So we could say that if someone gets Jagannath Puri Prasad, you offer something, the pandas there, they make something, they offer it to Jagannath, so it's now Prasadam. Then they offer it to Bimala Devi. Now it's her Mahaprasad. Then they take it and you give it to Prabhupada, or you give it to your guru, or you give it to someone, and they eat it, but they don't finish all of it, and you get that. Then those remnants are called Mahaprasadam, and they're extremely powerful. There's a section in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that talks about these distinctions. Like there's different levels. And so, in this way, if you're respecting Lord Jagannath and respecting the demigods, like we should never offend the demigods. Oh, the demigods are rascals, what's going on? That's not good. We should always respect them as seeing them in their position relative to Govinda, relative to Krishna. Not that like the Mayavadis or other people, Shiva is God. Shiva doesn't like that. Krishna doesn't like us. The gurus don't like us saying that, because he's technically he's not. But if we say, okay, Shiva is the best Vaishnav, therefore he's worshipful, okay, that everyone likes. Lord Chaitanya, when he was going on his tour of South India, he went to so many Shiva temples. It's not that we don't go to Shiva temples. And generally now we don't go because the people that are there worshiping him are not worshiping him in the proper mood. They don't really understand. So we don't really want their association, and we already have our own temples. But the principle of worshiping the demigods in their position, or giving them respect, is there. Like in some of the greatest examples, like Rukmini prays to Durga, please give me Lord Krishna as my husband. And so through that, she got the boon. Actually, they say before the marriage they'll always go worship the Durga deity in their city before any like big happening. So she would do that, and that's when Krishna had the time to come snatch her up, Rukmini, and take her back. And then also another famous example is of the gopis praying during their Katyayani vrat. Katyayani is also another name for Durga. So they're praying, they want Krishna as their husband. So in one sense they're worshiping, they're doing vandanam, devotional service to Durga, but it's not in the mood of worshiping Durga as the supreme. Like here it says, as his representative, Lord Shiva is identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shakshad Harid Vena Samasta Shastre Uktastata Bhavyata Eva Sadbi Kintu Prabhurya Priya Eva Tosya Vande Guru Shri. That's right. And so the Guru is Shakshad Hari. Shakshad means non-different. Like, it is Hari. He is Hari. But he's also Kintu Prabhu Priya Eva Tosya. He's the Prabhu's, he's Hari's Priya. He's the dear one to Hari. So how is it we can understand that he's non-different, Shakshad Hari? Well, we pray to Krishna, Krishna, please give me your mercy. So Krishna says, okay, I'll give you my mercy. Here it is. That's Guru. Guru is there. Krishna is, had his desire to give us mercy, and it flows. And the person that's there to tell us about who Krishna is and how to worship him, how to get closer to him, and actually satisfy him, that's Krishna's mercy. So it said the Guru is the form of the mercy of Krishna. We can't see Krishna with our current bad consciousness because we're not acting in a way that Krishna wants to see us. So fortunately, Krishna also comes in his merciful form of the deity, but that's also brought by Guru. So in a similar way, Lord Shiva can say to be identical because he's his representative. Vaishnavam Yatam Shambhu. Lord Shiva is the best Vaishnava. So in that way, he's worshipful. So there's so many shastras that are spoken that we hear by him, that we quote from him and understand. There's, even like this, it's saying there's the religious rites, like because of the sandhyas, we don't mess with them. We just perform spiritual activities during them. And so that's Durga. And now it's saying Lord Shiva is great, and therefore his devilish characteristics are simply imitation. Like Lord Shiva doesn't have any clothes, and people are like worshiping Shiva, please give me, all this nice stuff. And we're worshiping Shiva with all these like scented things, like we offer Lord Nrsingadev these nice scented oils and flowers, and Shiva getting cloth and ornaments. And he's just thinking, all this stuff coming is not fit for me. He's always meditating on Lord Hari. He's always meditating on Krishna. These are all meant for worshiping Krishna. But these unfortunate people, this body which is fit for being eaten by dogs, is being unnecessarily pampered by all this stuff. So I'm going to show them a good example. So therefore, he just goes to the cremation grounds, which is telling people, remember the time of death. It's coming for everyone. Everyone always forgets that. That's the funny thing about like material life, is no one ever really thinks about the time of death. So Lord Shiva is trying to be a constant reminder. Look, these ashes are going to be my clothes because that's what I want you to remember. I don't want you to remember, like Lord Krishna is saying, you waste your night sleeping, and in the day, like decorating your body, ornamenting the body, which is, not good. Here it's saying pishacha charya in the verse, like charya, activity. Acharya is the one who's performing like the activity of what examples we should follow. Like the person Bhagavat is performing all the activities that is mentioned in the book Bhagavat. So this pisacha acharya, so Lord Shiva having all this, like sometimes he has a garland of skulls and all this stuff. It's just an imitation. He's not actually really tamasic and really low like that. He's completely pure and completely above that. Even we hear in the, what canto is it? The 6th canto, Chittaketru Maharaj, he's like sees Lord Shiva there, and Lord Parvati's sitting on his lap basically naked. And there's all these sages, like, imagine if I was giving Bhagavatam class and there was someone like in a bathing suit sitting on my lap. I mean, that's what it was like. But Chittaketru kind of makes a joke about it, and then Lord Shiva just smiles. He likes the joke, but then and all these followers they don't say anything. But then Parvati, she doesn't like the joke, so she ends up cursing him. But in there, Chittaketru is making the point that Lord Shiva, even though he's doing these things that seem weird, he's actually completely pure. They're just, his pisacha acharya is just a vidambanam, an imitation, because he's a great personality. He's actually one of the 12 Mahajanas, like those who actually know what real religion is. It's like real religion is a very subtle thing, real dharma, Bhagavat dharma. It's not like an easy thing. It's just in the heart of the pure devotees. And the 12 Mahajans are 12 examples in the scriptures that we can understand. And the Prabhupada says also the The new Mahajans are the 6 Goswamis, and they're also showing us what real religion is. Mahajana Sagataya Panta Ha. What is it? Is that Mahajana Yena Gata? Something like that. Follow in the footsteps of the Mahajans. So that's what Prabhupada says in the purport. One should therefore follow in his footsteps. So what are his footsteps? Are we going to follow in his footsteps and just go naked around like Naga Babas and smoking ganja and like doing this stuff? No, that's not what we, drinking bang. Bang is like you put all these, weed and all these other intoxicants and you make it into a brew and then you just drink it and it's something that gets you super high. And I've heard some people make the argument that, we're doing this hard sadhana like out here in the wilderness and like, so therefore we take this stuff to like calm our nerves and like, I don't know. Then why go to the wilderness if you can't take it? If they can't stand being in the wilderness, maybe their sadhana is above their adhikar. They should just come to the temple and just go to ecstatic Gaur Arti and just dance with that and have full Mahaprasadam. But at least we're fortunate enough to understand that. So we should follow in his footsteps, not of doing these ridiculous activities, but of his activities. Durga is sitting almost naked on his lap, but he's unattached. It's not that he's like begging for that or henpecked by her. He's the controller. He's unattached to matter. Although he puts ash on his things, we should just wear our regular dhotis and saris and everything like that, regular clothes. If we have to go to work, wear nice work clothes. We don't have to be naked. But we should be following his example, following his footsteps. There's anukaranam, anusharanam. We don't want to follow an anukaranam, following the activities of the great personalities, because that's impossible, because they're great personalities. That's why they're great personalities. They can do specific things. Lord Shiva drank the ocean of poison. If we drink even a little poison, then we're dead, where it just made his neck blue. And so our whole body will turn blue if we try to drink poison. But if we anusharanam, if we follow in their footsteps, then that's actually the safe position. And his footsteps is he's Vaishnavam Yatashambhu. He's the best Vaishnava. So we should follow in that. We should try to be the best Vaishnavas that we can be. Maybe we're not going to be as good as Shiva, but we can ask for his mercy that he can help us advance in the path of devotional service. And so therefore, demigods like Lord Brahma, they follow the religious rites observed by him. These religious rites means the rites of the sandhya, that you don't go to the bathroom or sleep or eat, or to speak of have intercourse during the sandhya, because of different reasons why I was saying. And that's, the Acharyas have prescribed us nice things to do during the sandhya so that we don't do those. He is the controller of the material energy, which causes the creation of the material world. He's the controller of Durga, and Durga's controlling this whole material world, which is like a prison. And so we should try to worship Krishna, and Durga then can, like a nice warden, gives a less sentence and makes it easier. Durga can help be the cause for us getting out of here. And he is great, and therefore his devilish characteristics are simply imitation. So Lord Shiva is Mahajan. We should anusharanam, follow in his footsteps, not anukaranam, following in his devil's characteristics, because they're simply imitation. One role he plays as the Gunatar of the mode of ignorance is he's the Bhutanath. He's the helper of all these super ignorant people that they don't have any other shelter really besides him. There's so much in the mode of ignorance. They committed suicide. They did all these terrible things. They need someone to help them. So he's taken the responsibility to do that. So sometimes his character also has to, is in line with that. He's traveling in the sandhyas. It said he's going with all his different ghosts and hobgoblins and things during that. So he's like the leader of that. So sometimes things can look pretty grotesque. So these are just simply imitation, and they don't change his vibhumna charitam, his great character. So now with that, I would like to ask if Chandrasekhar Maharaj has anything to say, and if not, we can pass it down according to the seniority of the devotees who have a comment or a question.
Actually, there's a couple of interesting stories. One of them is one I just heard recently on the internet, given by, I guess his name is Amarendra, young Indian devotee.
Yeah.
He was talking about the mercy of Jagannath. And he connected the pastime of Lochandas Thakur in the Chaitanya Mangala to Lord Chaitanya's, to the pastime of Jagannath in Puri. He said that because Durga Devi made the vow that everyone should get prasadam. And that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why she is as Bimala Devi in the inner sanctum there. However, because her husband, Lord Shiva, did not give her prasadam, he is not included. And his mandap and his whole thing is outside. So, that was one point he made. I'd never heard that before. And then
I never heard that. I heard the first point, but I never heard that second one with Shiva. Yeah, that's funny.
the other part
I'm sorry
is
for
that there's
Gotta
a
give him a
famous
shout out.
story that once Durga Devi was very disturbed by the fact that she and her husband always live around crematoriums. They don't have a nice house like other people. So she said, "My dear husband, is it against some scriptural principle that we don't have a house like everyone else?" And Lord Shiva said, "No, we can have a house." So Lord Shiva, through his mystic potency, created a huge and wonderful house. And so Durga was very happy that they had a house just like everybody else, and they wouldn't have to live in the crematoriums. And they decided to have a housewarming so that people would come and the house would be blessed with people, when people visited them. So they tried to find a pundit who would do the housewarming service. I forgot who it was. They tried to get one person to do it, and they couldn't do it. So they got another pundit to do the actual housewarming service. And so after the housewarming, yagya, then Lord Shiva asked, well, how can I repay you, my dear pundit? He said, well, actually, it'd be really nice if I had this house. And so Lord Shiva said, done, you can have the house. And they went back to living in the crematorium.
Ramar Prabhu, do you have anything to say?
I had a comment and a question. My comment was you were mentioning that these personalities, like the demigods, they don't appreciate or neither do they like being called the supreme. I was hearing another class, and the speaker was juxtaposing that sometimes these god men they never claim that they're God, but they tolerate their disciples calling them God. So there's a famous video of one of these god men. The person is going on the stage and saying he's God. Yeah, this person, you're God, and you are God. And then he's like, no, and he's like trying to be very humble about it, but he's not like stopping them. But the speaker was juxtaposing that to our Srila Prabhupada. When someone started calling Srila Prabhupada God, he kicked them out of ISKCON.
Yeah. Like Lord Chaitanya, they would say even Lord Chaitanya is God. He was giving an example. He's like, he would close his eyes, close his ears.
So like that's Acharya. So I really appreciated that point. My question is, you were saying that Kashyapa was just telling Diti to just wait for the Sandhya to go, but she couldn't even wait for a minute or a second. So I was thinking that most bad decisions, like good decisions, they usually, the qualities of a good decision is that you consult the seniors, you consult the Vedas, the Shastras, and you make an informed decision. But bad decisions usually happen in a moments, like in haste, when there's like a desire and you want to fulfill it. So I was just wondering what are some ways to kind of like not make these mistakes of haste decisions?
So there's a lot of things coming to my mind. Let me just pull up the verse. In the Bhagavad Gita, that's not it. In the 3rd chapter, Arjuna is asking, "Oh, descendant of Vrishni, by what is impelled one to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force. And what did he say? It is by lust. So, like DT made, she had to just wait a little bit of time. And actually, we hear the next verse of this chapter, which we'll hear tomorrow. Though hearing this from her husband, Didi, her senses afflicted with lust, without shame, like a prostitute, grabbed the cloth of her husband. In the purport, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that lust devours discrimination, which is normally there when you have self-respect. And the proof of this among men is, any guesses? Lord Brahma. And among women is Diti. So Lord Brahma, do we remember the incident which happened with him? Yeah, he was afflicted by lust, and he chased after his daughter. And then with Diti, then we're hearing now, then the two biggest demons that the universe has ever heard of were born. And so the question, so then therefore your question relates to, like, lust is the problem, therefore how do you solve the problem of lust? And Krishna is explaining in the end that basically lust is sitting in these different places, the mind and intelligence and the senses, and it's like a war against it. So if we know the different bases of the enemy, then we can know what to nuke first. So he says first nuke the senses, then gradually the mind and the intelligence. So the first thing is like, thinking, feeling, willing, doing. We have to eliminate the doing. That's why we follow the 4 regular principles. Absolutely, you just stop these sinful activities. Then gradually the mind, the feeling and the willing of the mind and the intelligence will be properly situated. Krishna says, thus knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence, you should steady your mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So the main enemy in any spiritual person's life is actually this lust, and therefore all of our spiritual activity, especially in the beginning, like in Nartana Vritti, is to change and transform this into love. That's what all of the activities we're doing, coming to the Bhagavatam class, going to Mangalarti, chanting our rounds, eating only prasadam, associating with devotees. Everything we're doing is going against that. Now, specifically, they're completely, Didi is completely enveloped in lust, and so we're in such a dangerous position like that. One Prabhupada said sometimes when devotees are experiencing very big problems, they can go towards the deities and specifically pray, oh, my dear Krishna Balaram, he was talking about in Vrindavan, but it could be, my dear Radha Govind. Express your problem, you cry out for mercy. Sometimes when we're in intense situations, that can pull out a certain intensity in us and desperation to the Lord, which otherwise wouldn't have. So if we're somehow in a situation where we can't even wait a second, like DT, a little bit of our devotional intelligence should activate and realize that, okay, now I need to take shelter of the Lord. Otherwise, it's nothing good is going to happen. Besides that, nothing's coming. Does that satisfy you? Anyone else? Hari Om Tat Sat. Thanks a lot. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
His grace, Natabara Gauranga Prabhu ki jai.